Hi everybody, you have found what to play next. We're bringing everything that is awesome, and I do mean awesome in gaming. So this is Ultima 6. That was actually Richard Garriott. He included himself in the game as Shimino, his gaming character from their D&D night. So Ducre, Ilo, and Shimino actually do game every Wednesday night with each other. And then his wife shows up in later versions and so on. Right now she's still just an artist. But, so it's an homage to the greatest time period in gaming for a lot of us, where PC gaming was still separate from console gaming. So we did a lot of research to keep it alive. People would go out, people talk about, like, I'm helping with the launch now. Not everyone knows, we mean influencing. So they already have their own brand. We just want to keep buying the products that they put out there. And there's a giant co-op movement in America where we're doing this. We're supporting Twitch people and supporting YouTube and so on. And we did this back in the 90s with PC gaming. So they came up with the brand and they had the company and everything, but they would contact us on forums, so like beta testers. My dad was a beta tester for Bethesda. We helped launch them. And they were really talking about like what the industry was doing, so it was an interesting thing to be a part of. They would just flat out explain, obviously there were some things that were secrets and so on still, but they would just flat out explain, like, they're exploring first-person perspective in general in the industry. Like, they're looking to buy. So these people who had established franchises would, have to go and consider that if they do want to put their game out and be successful. And success, it was so much a measure of popularity back when the market starts, that it becomes a part of the brand. So it's not like you're not there for it. It's just, that we're influencing. So this is where that started for us. And I know that there's going to be another huge movement. They're already teaching it in schools, the content management breakdown and so on. So we would showcase this to our friends on our home PCs. If you were from a nice neighborhood or you had a father who was in the industry, I was both. The one tended to go with the other, I guess. Then you got it first. So we're talking about 1987. When the internet did come out. That's when we started to experience that in our homes. So super cool, and you got to meet, just people in the industry based off of the facts that you would enter to look up the few websites that were out there. There were not a ton of websites. And influence things like this. So this wound up on Nintendo, which was a pretty big coup. Nintendo was a really well-known brand by the time Ultima 6 rolled around, and they released 3 copies. So they had 2 additional copies for computer gamers, where you can play Savage Empire or Martian Dream. Burma Grave. That seems unlikely. Burma. Must be somebody's name. ENBAL. Embalming. Try a better bottle of our... Oh, there must be something underneath these. I must not be getting the second prompt. Just try a bottle of our... I don't know why that would be, like, advertising space on these graves. It's horrible. We're gonna wait until they wake up. Sorry. So the story thus far... We make it into Britannia, again. And the gargoyles are giving Lord British problems. So we got an SOS. It was through the gargoyles, like through some quirk in their magic. So we know we're going to wind up being like a little bit more neutral party than otherwise. Might have noticed the similarities between me and my sister. Just kidding. What is it you need? Beautiful lass, Stephanie is. So you really want to, anything that's in red will yield more information. And you really kind of want to interact with people in the village in this. Text parsers went out, and I'm surprised because it was like the first thing that looked like AI. You know what I mean? It was the first thing where I thought if I put in a word, like the feeling was if I put in a word, I might get a different answer. And it's like the user interface part of that. So those are actually really cool. They had a simple one here. More complex ones were generally Fraughts games. There's still a Fraughts website that some of us play around on, and it's cool because it just, like, you have to guess what's important interior to the narrative that you can't see. Like Detroit Become Human did the polar opposite, and I assume they did it on purpose. It was such a smart game where you could see the narrative line that you were working inside of and see where your puzzles went and the object names that go to them and so on. And they were all implicit in those titles and chapters. But that originally, so we had these word games because we didn't have good monitors. That kind of evolved. Just kind of making my way around an Abbey. Zeke, the one-armed beekeeper. Beekeep, excuse me. Lost me an arm. Lost me arm and gained that name in battle. These are true friends. They work all day, making honey. It's just telling me a story here. So the gargoyles took over the holy shrines, and that's going to be the major political problem here. We just defeated the Mondane. That's the last chapter, and they will actually bring up the last chapter in context to their lives, so you get to feel like an actual holy person in it. I buys all my hives from my niece, lady. Alright, I guess they can go about their business. We have one last peasant to question. So we have to find out, like, where these shrines are, what the mantra is, we go defeat the gargoyles and reclaim those before we can really do anything else. But I assume that we'll learn about the quest on the way. So it's just kind of how they rolled, so. You can get, different companions, like Sherry as the castle mouse. So she was a cool addition this time. Hello, my lady. Eckhart the vine keeper. Care for the garden and tend to the vine. So we're in an abbey. I found Empath Abbey in the middle of the night, walking away from my elbows. I did like a big circuit around the woods, so I just cut that part out. And then we went up the road, and there's Empath Abbey. So we're just, checking the place out, making sure that we get all the clues that we need to keep going. And then we're going to hit up Minnock. It's Hudby due north of Britain. Or so they tell me. Oh, okay, cool. So we can check that out when we go back to Britain. I still kind of like the third-person camera angle. I don't love what they've done with it since Baldur's Gate. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but that particular angle is like off. Up inside of buildings and off down outside of them. I'm really particular about that. Like, I've got to get the name of the dev. There's a series of Western games that I've played, and they have this flat camera angle where it cuts at your heels. I just can't deal with it. G-O-L. Golden L-A. Golden Lads. That is a scary looking dude. Hello. If I be speaking with ye, I'd best not be. I'm digging. I'd be mole. I dig graves from a master Glen. Digging's been in my family for generations. So the problem with an abbey is you'll have, like people who get dropped off. People who've lived there forever. So, thank you very much. It's not even my birthday. I'll tell you this, keep an eye on old Glenn. They say not all the bodies end up where they're supposed to. Holy cow. He was supposed to have paid for my shovel. Yeah, I guess we better bounce. This guy is, like, scandalous. So I'm assuming, like, is this a funeral home? Oh, it's a blind chick. Hi, Stephanie. I can call you Steph. This is amazing. We're getting off on the best foot. The best foot? The right foot. Good morning, my friends. Take care. Please cedar door. So, really descriptive. You could kind of get a sense of like what they were going for. That's probably the biggest miss. I thought that was their bedroom. Was even an open coffin. That's not exactly what a funeral home looks like. So Minnock is, I think, due north of here. Hopefully I'll be able to hit that before sundown. You kind of gotta, I don't know that there's a time limit per se, In most games back then, you could hypothetically run out of time, but they were very large narratives. So, see a quiet, pale, almost motionless gentleman. Good evening, he says in a voice that says, shivers down your spine. He's Glendark of the Trinsic Darks. Had to move away, it was too sunny. Much prefer moonlight. Prepare the bodies of the departed for their eternal rest. He puffs a grape in his mouth. Ew. I want not to have grapes, sir, thank you. I didn't have to put up with that incompetent grave digger. Oh my goodness! For most clients, I prefer to use the frigid soul roll. Gives the departed a nice healthy glow. This guy just knows who he is. This cannot afford resurrection. Or they're old. Thank you. I don't want to think about my body like devolving enough for you to approve of it. The next time... Oh, okay. You can't get good help these days. So Gravedigger is one of the narrative plots here. Don't concern yourself with... Oh, okay. Goodbye for now. This doesn't really go anywhere. You just get to know him and Mole. And that's just the way it is. Like, most of the people in the village aren't really important. But you do, you know, that kind of makes an Easter egg out of real-life clues that you need. Ooh, very nice. So, real-life Easter egg in the Ultima is if you move it far enough away, you don't get jumped when you steal things. Mr. Howard was a bad influence early in life. Eventually they did wind up doing studies on people based off their video game choices, which was horrifying for anybody who's played Mass Effect. We were scarred for life. Like, if they just look at the choice and the consequence, and they don't collate that first, like, if you haven't played the game, it was such a pitch to, you know, for these kids to try and explain themselves. If you don't already know the narrative, they included stuff that could just go wrong. So, like, if you had an encounter, you could have just stuff go wrong, no matter how good you were or how well you played the game. So, you see, if you just went down check by check by check, it was like, don't commit a guy to, or don't reject the guy and you invite him back into the group and he commits suicide. Like, all you have to do is have a bad opinion of us. And that game was so emotionally wrenching that it would look terrible. So is anyone else disturbed by the dead bodies? I'm trying to talk my way through looting the place. I feel like it's important to be thorough. I'm gonna steal from everyone equally. Dupre, move your butt out the way. So we're just gonna move this up the road. We love you guys. We love that you're always along for the ride. I'll steal this off screen. Link in the description below. Also, subscribe, hit the bell. We'll see you in the next video.